Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to the 100th Annual General Meeting. And I also want to again thank Shane Point of the Musqueam Nation for so eloquently welcoming us here today on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Throughout our meetings this year, we will be celebrating BCTF's past century of advocacy, solidarity, social justice initiatives, support for teachers' professionalism, and wellness. We should all be very proud of our rich history. And I'm personally very proud to be here today on the 100th as your president. And it's been an honor for me to be president for these last 3 years, and a table officer for 9, and a member at large for 5. And of course, a lot of things have changed over the last 100 years, but even in the past 15, it's remarkable what we've accomplished as a union. And none of it would have been possible without the support of you and all of our members across this province, past and present. Let's time travel just for a minute. Imagine 100 years ago. And I know we're only going into our 100th, it's been 99. It was on a day right here in Vancouver that history was made with the very first Trans-Canada telephone call. It was between Vancouver and Montreal. The circuit ran 6,763 kilometers, and you gotta wonder about this because it ran through Buffalo, Chicago, Omaha, Salt Lake City, and Portland, Oregon. And it wasn't until 1932 that a telephone line for all of Canada was completed. But now here in 2016, you can all pick up your smartphones and download the BCTF 100th AGM app. And at this meeting, we are making history with that app. It's been a long time coming. And I was reminded just a couple days ago, a parent had emailed me and asking me, okay, so where can I get your resolutions and information about your annual general meeting? And so I said, go to the BCTF website. She emailed me back later. It's not on the BCTF website yet. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So I said, hey, we got an app. Why don't you go to one of them stores and download it? She got back to me the next day and said, well, not everybody has a phone where you can download apps on, because I sure don't. So I was batting 0 for 2 with her. But on Thursday, everything did go up online, and she was able to get the information she wanted. Some of our history making, is much more recent and ongoing. And it is making a real difference in our students' lives, our teachers' lives, and families. And if you could kind of take a look at that agenda book and open to the first page. Now, I don't have mine in front of me. I was supposed to bring it up. Take a look at that first page. That's right, there it is. Here's some history that we made in this very room back in 1998. Okay, how many of you were here in 1998? Wow, well, a few of us. How many of you just didn't bother raising your hand? Well, I'm sure you will remember this story well. It was one of the years that delegates just like yourselves were greeted by supporters and protesters, all because we were taking a stand against homophobia in our schools. There was a storm of controversy and huge media attention. Some folks had signs that said, "I love my teachers," "Thank you, BC teachers." Others stood silently holding signs like, "Hands off our kids." And the reason? We were debating a motion here on that page that the BCTF work to eliminate homophobia and heterosexism and to make our schools safer for LGBTQ staff, students, and families. And it passed, but not without controversy. Imagine, people actually came to protest that, to tell us to vote against actions that would actually make our schools safer for our students and our teachers. And I remember an even more hostile time for sexual minorities. And we think back in our own past, and I think back in my own past, about 1969, and I was in grade 12, and I took a sociology course called Man and Society. A wonderful teacher, a brave teacher that told us to explore the issues. And at that time, I was really horrified at what was happening across North America, in particular in the US, directed at, and this term was used more than gay was used then, homosexuals. So in that grade 12 sociology class, I wrote a paper on the need to support gay people in their struggle for basic rights. Because at that time, being gay was seen as a mental illness and was actually illegal. Just imagine that. And I was asked to present that in class. Too few people were speaking out back then, and they needed allies. And the Gay and Lesbian Liberation Front was created in 1970 in New York and elsewhere. It was one of my own first acts, small as it was, to take a stand against injustice and the trampling of other people's rights and identity. And you know, it's taking that stand, the stands that we all take, that shows solidarity. And that's why social justice is so important to this union and to our society. 20 years after I wrote that essay, the photo that was taken in your book in 1998. In that picture, you'll see Romy Chandra, who was a student in Maple Ridge. And he was one of the founders of BC's first Gay-Straight Alliance. You'll also see Brent Powers, another student who was an early reader on that photograph. And in the background is one of Brett's adopted fathers, Murray Corrin, BCTF member and teacher at the time, who was one of the leaders in the fight against Surrey's effort to ban books with same-sex parents in the 1990s. Was so proud back in 1998 of what we were doing, despite the overwhelming criticism and protests by some parents, churches, and the media. BC teachers, our union, stood up strong for our students, for our members, for what was right. And you know, now 18 years later, we still have ways to go. But attitudes, thankfully, have shifted, and schools are safer and more welcoming places. But we still need to make more progress in that whole area. And no one can doubt that right was on our side in history. And much of that progress is because of that social justice work, the hard work and the caring of all our BC teachers across this province. In our province right now, there are only 41 school districts with specific policies protecting LGBTQ students and staff. And those discrete policies are the result of a lot of hard work and effort and time of our members and many who are here today. And you know, we still got 19 districts to go. And we have to ensure that all 60 school districts in this province actually adopt anti-homophobia and anti-transphobia policies in our schools. The time has come. It's been a long struggle, and we still only have 41. And where is the provincial leadership on this in our government? Why hasn't our Premier Clark, who was such a champion, so she says, of anti-bullying as our radio host, why hasn't she told districts to follow the law? The government's inaction has now put us behind Alberta when it comes to protecting queer students. The safety and well-being of all of our students shouldn't be about politics. We need this province to step up. It's time. It's 2016. Colleagues, it was also in 1998 when this body took a big step to help our First Nations learners in British Columbia. The AGM passed a motion then that stated that a task force be struck to investigate the effectiveness of the education system for First Nations students, and that recommendations be made to the 1999 AGM for improvement. And a year later, a series of recommendations went to the 1999 AGM to enhance what the Federation was going to do to support our Aboriginal students and teachers. And much of the work we've done to build these relationships in our First Nations communities and promote strategies to enhance Aboriginal education over these past 2 decades came from that task force. And we should celebrate that. And now 18 years later, our union is still doing its part in our efforts to support our efforts in the areas of reconciliation with Canada's First Nations people. Shortly after we all met for the 2015 AGM, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its 94 calls to action. It was truly a historic day, June 2nd, 2015, when Justice Murray Sinclair delivered the Commission's final report and recommendations, the culmination of so much work and so much courage. The TRC's final report urged all of us to acknowledge that profound toll that this cultural genocide has taken on our First Nations people, and to take the calls to action to heart. And I'm very proud here to stand today that we, as the BCTF, have heard that call, and we are acting with the Project of Heart and other initiatives. Our efforts and achievements with the Project of Heart have grown tremendously from its inception 3 years ago. More than 500 schools have participated in this project, the highest participation rate in Canada. Yes, we should be proud of that. And the beautiful canoe covered in tiles made by thousands of students is now on display in Umista Cultural Center in Alert Bay, the same place where St. Michael's Residential School once cast a long, dark shadow. And tomorrow a movie will be previewed at lunchtime for the Aboriginal lunch about that. Tiled with artworks made by thousands of BC students, that canoe is a powerful artifact that commemorates the learning and the healing process that's come through and must come through education. And that's where our Project of Heart teaching resource, illuminating the hidden history of Indian residential schools in BC, comes in. Our book has an online edition, bctf.ca/hidden history, and has an amazing wealth of learning resources in it. And this resource is already helping our teachers and students better understand the true history of residential schools in British Columbia. And I want to thank the teachers and BCTF staff, and in particular, Gail Stromquist and Nancy Knickerbocker, who've worked so hard to make that resource a reality. We've printed 10,000 copies of it. We've seen 26,000 online downloads from 10 different countries. It's been translated in French. It's been sent to our locals and many of our school districts and unions across in other provinces. Teacher unions in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba have approached us for advice in doing their own versions about the residential school experience in their own province. And recently, the Hospital Employees Union invited us to address their provincial executive, as they want to do something similar to support their members in terms of caring for Aboriginal patients and clients. And the book has also received accolades from across the country, and it was given to all of the guests in the opening of the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg. And back here in British Columbia, the Chief Justice of the BC Provincial Court has requested a copy for every provincial judge in our province. But we haven't had a request from the Premier yet for her own personal copy. Maybe it's coming. We also saw post-secondary institutions like Douglas College order 200 books for their students. And of course, BC teachers downloading sets for their students. And I believe there are some here too today. I'm very proud of this work that our members are doing to educate today's generation about the terrible history of Indian residential schools, a history that was deliberately hidden for decades and was used to kill the Indian and Aboriginal children. And now, thanks to the courage of survivors, the truth is being told in our classrooms, in our communities, and across our country. And these injustices are coming to light, and denial is no longer an option. And this week, we'll have time to deepen our knowledge and understanding of that reconciliation. One of the biggest questions our teachers have had about the new curriculum is how to infuse Aboriginal content and perspectives. And it is our hope, like this and the Project of Heart, will do some to help. And we also have workshops available for our locals and schools and PSA conferences. We also know that it can't just be all of us doing the work, that we do need our government to ante up and provide us that in-service time and that support to make this happen in a way that is needed to infuse the Aboriginal content and perspective. And we are working on that with this government, but they need to come forward. And we also know that part of it is inviting the elders into our schools and for us to be going into the Aboriginal communities and the nations and talking with them. It's an important part of this infusion. As Justice Sinclair said, education must play a central role. And as teachers, as union activists, and as professionals, let's all work to keep that call to action alive and really make meaningful, lasting change. Colleagues, as we look ahead, We have a lot to discuss and much to accomplish. One of the biggest items we'll be looking at this AGM is the future of our pension plan. 1 year ago, delegates at the 99th AGM voted to have the Federation undertake a thorough consultation like it's never been seen regarding possible changes. It was one of the biggest consultations we've ever taken in our history, probably bigger than the one we did in 2010 on strengthening the inflation adjustment account. 4,000 survey responses over it, 90 meetings in communities across BC, hundreds of phone calls and emails answered by table officers and staff, and even today. And you'll be debating that recommendation from the Executive Committee on Monday. As you hear, that recommendation, we believe, was responsive to all the feedback that we received and a commitment to ensure that our pension plan best meets the needs of current members as well as our future members. And our core message through that whole consultation was that our pension plan is strong, is healthy, and is stable, but it can be better, and that's our goal. You know, our pension plan is also personal, we know, and that's why we've had a lot of emotion about it and reaction to it. Back in 1971, 23,000 BCTF members across this province shut down public schools in a one-day strike to protest the government's failure to respond to requests to improve pensions for retired teachers. 23,000. And you know there wasn't a vote. It was just the right thing to do back in 1971, and they did it. So we fought hard for a strong pension, and we now have the opportunity to make the adjustments that we need to make it even stronger for all of our plan members. We believe that it accurately portrays the demographic shifts. It allows for better gains with that higher actual rate and makes the plan more equitable for all of our members. The consultation was a huge effort, and we have to thank all of our members for participating in it. And I also want to thank the BCTF Executive Committee and BCTF staff, and in particular Mike Kimmis and Victor Choi, as well as our pension plan trustees who all helped so much with this consultation and analysis. And your time and work and commitment is very much appreciated for that. Thank you. As we move further into 2016 and towards 2017, we also have some big changes coming into our schools. And one of those changes, and I know it's not going to be without some controversy, is a replacement with another provincial assessment model for the FSA. The Advisory Group on Provincial Assessment, which we sit on, has been hard at work this year and for the last number of years. And there is broad consensus on key points, which is encouraging. And we've been very clear about our perspective and what will be acceptable or not as we go forward. And this AGM will also be debating a motion on it. We've been unequivocal in our push to seek a model that doesn't hand over any data to third-party groups like the First Nations, or Fraser Institute, to misuse. That there be no individual or school results released to anyone. And that the test not be high stakes for kids or for teachers. And that it assesses how well our students are doing province at the provincial level and not at an individual level. It's not perfect, and we'll see, and we have decisions to make. We've got massive curriculum revision discussions going on right now. You know, it's not new curriculum, it's revised curriculum, and we've been saying that. And as you know, what's so different is that every piece of our curriculum is being revised at the same time, and that's what is huge about this. And this work is being done by our members, and that is so important, because it's our members who are the voice. But what we need is the voice of all of our members in that feedback, so we can shift it to what accurately reflects what we want to do with our students in our classrooms. And we know that for it to be implemented the way it needs to be implemented, we need the necessary resources. We need the time, we need the materials, and we need the funding. And we're very clear with government that for this to be successful, they have to come through with this. And the one aspect of the revised curriculum is that it will actually give more professional autonomy to our teachers in terms of the curriculum and delivering the curriculum. And it's not about pedagogy, because we determine our pedagogy on how we're going to use and teach the curriculum with our students. We know the non-instructional days, the extra 2 we negotiated, is not enough, but they were a start, and we'll keep advocating for more. And we also know, to no one's surprise, when we said that those days have to be organized by our members. In a collaborative way, yes, but organized by our members. And those non-instructional days so far, the curriculum in service, in terms of the feedback we've been getting, have been an excellent experience across this province. And we've heard from many districts who've been surprised they've been so good. And I got to say, well, you know, hello, it's a no-brainer, because teacher-led professional in-service, teacher-led professional development when we do our professional development, is the only way to go to make it meaningful for our members and for our students. We have a role to advocate for sound educational policy and direction in our schools, and that can never be understated. And another thing, 11 years ago, this body also created an anti-privatization and commercialization task force. It's public school teachers working with our partners and allies that keep our public system strong. And as we work on incorporating the revised curriculum, we need to keep the fight up against attempts to further privatize or commercialize education in BC. We don't need Chevron money in our schools. What we need is the adequate government funding to keep our public education system strong. And we know that part of this, our government also needs to be communicating more out there with our parents, because it's not up to us to tell our parents about the revisions going on. It's about government to tell the parents about what's going on, and we can support that. And we also know another area that's so important for us, that we keep emphasizing and lobbying and need to continue doing, is on the issues of class size and class composition. Because we also know that the successful implementation of our curriculum depends on appropriate conditions of working and learning for our teachers and our students. And they go hand in hand. And the diversity of our membership. Went to a meeting where some people were just really happy about the curriculum revisions going on in our schools. They were excited about it, to be part of it. And at the same meeting, I'm talking to a teacher saying, why are we even involved? Why are we even involved in curriculum revision when my class size and my class composition haven't been dealt with, and I'm trying to deal with my dread BC? That's the diversity of our membership, and we have to ensure that we keep doing the work on all fronts that we need to do as a union, a strong BCTF. And we know that if it wasn't for that teacher education fund we negotiated, things would be even worse in our classrooms. Because that fund did buy back 312 FTE jobs and 800 part-time teaching positions according to government stats. That's how many less teaching positions there were if it wasn't for that education fund. And we need to be at it. And we have a chance. We have another chance for change. And we can't, I hope, squander that chance. And that's the May 2017 provincial election. We need to continue our advocacy efforts at the local and provincial level to get education on the election radar. And that's one of the things we're going to be doing in this next year. We need all of our political parties, regardless of partisan colors, to make public education a priority in their platforms. And we know the parties are busy on their platforms. And so now is the time to be advocating. Now is the time to be reaching out to our MLAs. And we'll help you do it. Go fund bcschools.ca, send your MLA an email today. And the message right now is simple. Feed their minds, fund their schools as positive and hopeful, and let's use it to move the politicians in the right direction. And they need pressure from more than just us. They need pressure from our parents, our trustees, and the general public. You know, we used our voices so powerfully during this strike, and we're going to need to do that now in the next 14 months to try to make the difference. And I want to finish up, and I know I've been going on a bit long here. There's so much actually to say in terms of what we've accomplished and what we need to do. But one more last piece of BCTF history. The big news back in January that we are off to the Supreme Court of Canada. This fall, November 10th, the Supreme Court of Canada will hear our appeal to try to restore class size and class composition language, as well as specialist teacher ratios that were unconstitutionally stripped from our collective agreements in 2002. And we'll also be trying to undo the BC Court of Appeals decision that said governments only need to consult with workers before using legislation to ram through changes in collective agreements. That's a decision that needs to be changed. That decision does not bode well for free collective bargaining. Our case has so many implications for workers across this country, and that's why many of them are going to be supporting us and are supporting us along the way. Other unions, provincial and national labor organizations, will also be filing applications for intervenor status and making arguments with us to the Supreme Court. And it's when workers stick together, we are stronger. And we, as teachers, are a big part, a so important part of that labor movement. We are a strong and proud union. We stand up for our rights, and we never stop advocating. 12 years just on that one issue shows of who we are as a federation, as a strong union. And we work hard to try to make the lives of our teachers better, as well as the learning conditions for our students. And we know there's more to do in that area. But I know we're all committed to continue that struggle. So, in terms of what we've done, let's continue to be moving forward in that proud and determined way. Everyone, it's just been such an honor for me to be your president these last 3 years. I'll be running for past president. And I can't thank you all enough for your support, encouragement, and solidarity over these past years. And I want to thank all of you for what you do every day in your classrooms, in your schools, and in your locals, and in your communities. Thank you so much. Let's all be proud. Let's have fun at this AGM. Thank you so much.